She tried to leave quietly, but he saw her little girl staring at his plate. The bell above the diner door jingled as the woman in the oversized coat tried to slip out without a sound. Her shoes were soaked from the slush outside and her hair stuck to her face in little wet strands. She held a tiny hand that trembled in hers. The little girl stopped, eyes locked on the steaming plate at the corner booth, eggs, bacon, pancakes stacked like a small tower, butter slipping down the sides. The girl's stomach growled so loudly the man in the booth heard it. He looked up. Their eyes met. The woman gave a quick, tight shake of her head and tugged her daughter toward the exit. The little girl didn't move. She only stared at the plate, wide-eyed, lips parted, breathing in the smell like it was the only thing keeping her standing. "Ma'am," the man said, his voice rough from sleep and cold air, "please wait." The woman's grip tightened. The girl looked between her mom and the food. Then the woman whispered, "I'm sorry," and pulled the door open to the sharp November wind. The man stood so fast his plate slid, forks clattered, the whole diner turned. The little girl flinched at the sound and the woman froze with one foot outside. Snow blew in, stinging everyone's faces and hands. The man took one step forward. "Don't go," he said, heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt in months. "Please." Before we continue, what would you do in this moment? Comment where you're watching from. Lagos, Houston, London, drop your city below, and if this story hooks you, hit like so more people can see it. A few hours earlier, the town of Millersbridge woke up under a sky the color of steel. It was the kind of cold that made your teeth ache when you breathed. Erin Cole had been driving since dawn in a faded blue sedan that rattled when the heater tried to work. Her 3-year-old daughter, Piper, sat in the back seat bundled into a puffy coat that made her look like a small, round cloud. The car coughed twice, then died on the road behind a strip of small shops and the diner with the glowing sign that said RIVERB&D Eats. Erin rested her forehead against the cold steering wheel and closed her eyes. She had spent the last of her cash on gas the night before, trying to get closer to a cousin who might let them stay for a while. The cousin's number went straight to voicemail and the message box was full. The engine wouldn't turn over. Her fingers shook, not just from the cold, but from the fear that lived like a bird beating its wings inside her chest. Piper, still half asleep, hummed to herself, the way she did when she was hungry but didn't want to say it. "Mommy," Piper said in a small voice, "are we there?" "Almost," Erin said softly, blinking back the sting behind her eyes. "We're going to warm up first, okay?" They walked along the sidewalk, holding hands past frosted windows and gray puddles. The diner glowed golden from inside, fog on the glass where people breathed and laughed and poured coffee. Erin hesitated at the door. She checked her pockets again, 2 quarters and a nickel. She didn't plan to buy anything. She only needed warmth for a few minutes to think, to calm the shaking in her legs. 10 minutes, she promised herself, 15 at most. Inside, the smell wrapped around them like a blanket: coffee, cinnamon, bacon, syrup. Piper's head turned toward the nearest table where a plate of pancakes steamed under a swirl of whipped cream. Erin felt her daughter's hand twitch. "We're just warming up, baby," Erin whispered, kissing Piper's cold fingers. "We'll be quick." They sat at the far end, in a corner where the draft still found them. Erin kept her eyes down. She didn't want to meet anyone's gaze. A waitress with a ponytail and warm eyes. Jenna brought a glass of water and a small paper cup with 3 orange slices. "On the house," Jenna said like it was no big deal. Erin's throat tightened. "Thank you," she said, her voice almost a whisper. Piper ate the orange slices slowly, one tiny bite at a time, cheeks bulging a little, trying to stretch the moment. Erin rubbed Piper's hands between hers. She told herself they would leave as soon as Piper's fingers felt normal again. The minutes crept by. The room hummed with clinks and low talk. A man sat alone in the corner booth near the window, shoulders broad under a simple gray sweater, hands wrapped around a mug as if he needed the heat to reach a heart gone cold. Noah Reed didn't come to Riverbend Eats on Thursdays. Thursdays had belonged to his wife Hannah. On Thursdays, before the accident, they had cooked breakfast together at home. She liked her pancakes with chocolate chips, he liked his with blueberries. He had been a year without her, and the silence in his house felt like snow that never melted. He came to the diner when the missing got too loud. Today was worse than usual. Today was the day the doctor had told him last year, "There's nothing else we can do," and he had sat in the hospital hallway with his head in his hands, listening to the steady, indifferent beep of machines. Noah watched the door open and 2 figures press in, mother and child. He noticed the coat first, too big and thin for the weather. He noticed the shoes soaked through. He noticed the way the woman kept her eyes down, trying to be invisible, the way people become small when they feel like they shouldn't be somewhere. And then he noticed the little girl's face when the pancakes went by, pure longing, honest and bright, like sunlight breaking through dark clouds for a second and then slipping away. His chest ached. He looked at his plate: eggs, bacon, pancakes with maple syrup. He'd only taken one bite. He told himself to stay put, to mind his business, to not make anyone uncomfortable. But the little girl glanced at his plate again and then at her mom, the tiniest question on her face. He felt something move inside him, something he thought had frozen for good. "Jenna," he said when the waitress passed, "that family there, do they have a tab?" Jenna followed his gaze. "No," she said gently, her voice quiet, "they're just warming up." "Bring them breakfast?" Noah said, too fast, like the words might vanish if he spoke them slowly. "Whatever you'd bring your own family, and don't tell them it's from me." Jenna nodded, but when she turned to put in the order, Aaron stood, mouth tight, and tugged Piper toward the door. She felt eyes on her, felt the hot rush of shame rising up her neck. Before Jenna could say a word, Aaron whispered, "Thank you for the warmth," and hurried away. Piper looked back at the plates. That was when the bell rang and the wind rushed in and every face turned. "Don't go," Noah said, standing so quickly his chair scraped. He didn't know what he was doing until he was already doing it. "Please." Aaron froze, one foot outside. "We'll be fine," she said, and even she could hear how thin the words sounded, how they shook. "Just," Noah swallowed, "let her eat." The diner went so quiet you could hear the coffee drip. Aaron's face flushed. "We didn't ask." "I know," Noah said, hands up like he was approaching a scared bird. "This is me asking, please, no one should be hungry on a morning like this." Aaron looked down at Piper, who was watching the pancakes like they were a miracle. Aaron's jaw worked, tears burned behind her eyes. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry in public. She had promised herself she would keep her pride. Pride didn't heat tiny hands, pride didn't fix cars. "Okay," Aaron whispered, barely audible, "just a little." Jenna moved like the wind when it changes from harsh to soft. Plates appeared. A small plate for Piper, a silver dollar stack of pancakes, 2 strawberries, a scrambled egg, a bigger plate for Aaron she didn't want but needed. Piper's first bite was slow, careful, like she was afraid it might be taken away. Then she smiled, a small, bright sunrise on a gray day, and dug in with a tiny fork, shoulders finally dropping. Noah sat down again, but his eyes kept going back to the corner. He didn't want to stare. He only wanted to make sure they were okay. The cook, Gus, leaned through the pass window and said, "The truck backed up over the alley. I can take a look if it's the starter." Aaron flinched. "We don't have money," she said, hands hovering near the plate like she might have to push it away to pay for it. "Let him look for free," Jenna said in a tone that meant the conversation was over. "It's Thursday, we do free looks on Thursdays." Gus rolled his eyes but waved a hand, already grabbing his jacket. The other customers went back to eating, the sound returning like the tide. Piper swung her legs under the chair and tapped a rhythm on the wooden leg. "Mommy," she whispered, syrup on her lip, "it's warm." Aaron tucked a stray curl behind Piper's ear. "I know, baby." Noah stared at his hands wrapped around his coffee mug. He had never wanted to make anyone feel small. He had only wanted to give, because giving for a second made the ache in his chest less sharp. He took a deep breath and forced himself to eat, one slow bite at a time. 10 minutes later, Gus came back, cheeks red, holding a small metal piece in one hand. "Starter's shot," he said, "and your front tire's bald on the inside. You wouldn't make it to the next county in this weather." Aaron's heart sank. She shook her head, words stuck in her throat. "We'll figure something out." Noah set his fork down. He reached for his wallet without thinking, then pulled his hand back. Money could feel like pity if it was shoved into the wrong moment. He looked at Jenna. "Can we work something out?" he asked. Jenna looked from Noah to Aaron and then to Piper. "We can," she said carefully, "but only if it feels okay to Mom." Aaron's jaw tensed. She wanted to say no, she wanted to say they would manage, but she could feel Piper's little body finally warm against her side. She could see the wind push snow against the window in small, mean waves. What do you mean, work something out?" she asked, wary. Gus rubbed his hands together. "I've got a used starter on the shelf. It's not new, but it'll get you moving. And I've got a pair of takeoff tires from a town cruiser, still plenty of tread. Labor's the killer, but..." He hesitated, eyes on Piper, who was carefully cutting a pancake with her tongue sticking out in concentration. "But I could use a few hours of help Saturday if you're staying. We're behind on cleaning the back room." Erin blinked. It wasn't charity, it was an offer, work for work. I can clean, she said. I can clean very well. Deal, Gus said, as if it had been his plan all along. He nodded at Noah. And you can stop glaring at your wallet, we're fine. Noah let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding and gave a small, tight smile. I wasn't glaring, he said. You were, Jenna said with a smirk, but it's a good glare. The tension in the room eased with a ripple of laughter. Piper finished her pancakes and sat back satisfied the way only a small child can be after warmth and sweetness. Erin wiped her mouth, then her own eyes. Thank you, she said to Jenna, to Gus, to the air, to anyone who had a hand in this moment. She did not look at Noah. It was too much to meet the eyes of the man who had seen her hunger and made it safe to accept help. When they stood to leave, Noah's pulse quickened. He didn't want the connection to end as quickly as it had begun, but he knew how it felt when people pushed in too close to your pain. He stayed at his table and picked at his bacon, trying to look busy. The bell rang again as the door opened. Snow hissed on the floor. Piper turned and waved at Jenna, at Gus, at the coffee maker, at the world. That was when the twist arrived. An older man at the counter in a brown coat and a hat pulled low stood and blocked the door. Hold up, he said, voice sharp. You're not skipping a bill, are you? Everything stopped again. Erin's face flushed red and then went white. We didn't order, she said, shame burning like acid. We were told. It's covered, Jenna said, stepping between them, eyes like fire, by a friend. Friend, the man snorted. Looks like a setup to me. He glanced at Noah's table, at the half-eaten pancakes, at Noah's careful posture. People scam this place all the time. Noah stood calm but steady. Sir, he said, it was me, I asked them to be served. The man's eyes flicked to Noah's hands, to his face. Something like challenge flared. Then his gaze shifted to the photo on the diner, in loving memory wall, Hannah Reed smiling under a paper hat at a charity cook-off last summer. The caption under it read, she fed everyone, no questions asked. A beat passed, the hard line in the man's mouth eased. He tipped his hat once, grunted, and stepped aside. My mistake. Erin exhaled so slowly it was almost a sigh. She looked at Noah for the first time, really looked. She saw a man whose eyes were tired but kind, a man who carried a weight she didn't know, the way people carry sorrow like a hidden bruise. Thank you, she said, and this time she meant it straight to him. Noah's throat tightened. You're welcome, he said. Outside, the wind pressed against them like a solid thing. Gus and a younger guy from the kitchen hurried past with a toolbox, jackets flapping like flags. Erin and Piper followed them to the alley where the blue sedan waited with snow dusting its hood. Noah stood at the diner window watching them go, fingers unconsciously tracing the rim of his mug. Go, Jenna said, nudging him with her hip. You'll stand there all day and regret not saying real words. What words? He asked. Any words that are honest, she said, and don't be weird. I'm not weird. You are when you care, she said, but she smiled to take the sting away. He grabbed his coat and went, in the alley. Gus had the hood up. Piper stood on her toes to see, hands folded under her chin. Is the car sick? She asked. A little, Gus said, smiling, but we're going to make it better. Noah cleared his throat. I have a question, he said to Erin. He hated how awkward he sounded. He used to be good at words. He used to know how to make people feel safe with sentences. The last year had made every sentence feel like crossing a river on thin ice. There's a motel down by the river that takes cash. The rooms aren't fancy, but they're clean. If you want, I can cover a night, so Piper can take a hot bath so you can rest. You can pay me back by letting me buy you both breakfast again tomorrow. Erin's eyes filled so fast she had to look away. Why? She asked, her voice shaking. Why would you do that for strangers? Noah's hands moved once helplessly, then settled by his sides. Because someone did it for me, he said. When my wife was in the hospital, a stranger left an envelope with a key and a note that said, you don't have to be strong every hour. We slept for 5 straight hours. It saved us that day. I can't do what I want most. I can't bring my wife back, but I can do this. Please let me. Erin swayed like a person who had been standing too long on a boat that finally found still water. She nodded once. Okay, she whispered, just one night. 2, Noah said softly, surprising himself. Please. She laughed then, a small, broken sound that turned into something real. Okay, 2. Gus finished the starter and wiped his hands on a rag. Try it, he said. Erin turned the key, the engine coughed, then caught. Piper clapped her mittened hands, making soft thuds. "It's better," she shouted. "It is," Erin said, relief washing through her like heat. "It is, baby." Noah drove ahead of them to the motel, stopping once at a pharmacy to grab bubble bath and a small purple toothbrush with a smiling whale on it. He felt shy in the aisle like a giant walking through a tiny world. He added 2 granola bars and a hairbrush to the basket, then put the hairbrush back, then picked it up again. At the counter, the clerk looked at him like he knew the whole story without needing to hear it. "Good choice," the clerk said, tapping the toothbrush. "My daughter loves whales." At the motel, the manager, a woman with a stern face and eyes that softened for children, handed Erin a key. "Room 6, she said. "Extra blankets are in the closet." When Erin opened the door, a rush of warm air met them. The room smelled like clean sheets and lemon. Piper ran to the bed and bounced once, then stopped and looked at her mom to see if it was okay. Erin nodded. Piper bounced again, giggling. Noah put the small bag on the dresser. He lingered, unsure if he should go. Erin took a breath. "Would you?" she swallowed. "Would you like to come by later for dinner? I can make soup with the cans I have. It won't be much, but—" "Let me bring dinner," Noah said quickly. "No soup from a can tonight, not for Piper's first night out of the cold. There's a grocery store 2 blocks up. I'll get chicken and rice. My wife used to make it when we were tired. It tastes like calm." Erin's lips trembled. "Okay," she said, "thank you." Noah nodded once, at a loss for more words that wouldn't embarrass them both, and stepped out into the cold again. The sky had shifted from steel to pearl. Snow drifted lightly, softer, like the storm had taken a deep breath and decided to be kind for an hour. He was halfway to his truck when a voice called his name. He turned. Sheriff Tom, an old friend, stood by his patrol car, breath smoking in the air. "You all right, Reed?" Tom asked. "Yeah," Noah said, "just helping someone." Tom followed his gaze to the motel door. He nodded slowly. "Hannah would like that," he said, and the simple, gentle truth of it hit Noah right in the place that still hurt. He cleared his throat. "Yeah," he said, voice thick, "she would." That evening, the motel room held a glow the lamps alone couldn't explain. Piper sat cross-legged at the little round table, cheeks pink from a long bath, hair damp and combed. She wore clean pajamas Erin had pulled from a plastic bag she'd saved for months, waiting for a day that felt safe enough to open them. Noah knocked, then stepped in with a grocery bag. The smell of roasted chicken filled the room in minutes. He showed Piper how to fluff the rice with a fork. She showed him her whale toothbrush like it was a treasure. He laughed, and the sound surprised them both. While Piper drew whales in the motel notepad, Erin told Noah pieces of their story in simple lines like stitching that held a quilt together. She had worked at a bakery until the bakery closed. Her mother had gotten sick. The bills gathered like snowdrifts she couldn't shovel fast enough. The car was supposed to take them to family, then it didn't. She learned to be invisible because invisible people don't get asked questions that break them. Noah listened. He didn't blink too much, didn't nod too hard, just breathed with the story so she could breathe too. When he spoke, he didn't start with advice. He started with a truth. "You're strong," he said, "but you don't have to be strong every hour." Erin covered her face with her hands for a second and let the tears come without apology. Piper patted her shoulder with a little hand, then looked up at Noah. "Thank you for the pancakes," she said solemnly, like a person giving a speech. "You're welcome," Noah said. "You made them taste better." They ate. They laughed once or twice. They let the room be a small island of easy in a week that had been nothing but hard. When it was time to go, Noah stood and looked at the door like it might close on something precious if he didn't move slowly. "Tomorrow," he said, "breakfast again, and then Gus will swap those tires." "And Saturday," Erin said, brave for a second, "I'll clean the back room." "Deal," Noah said. He hesitated, then placed a plain white envelope on the dresser. "This is for the room," he said. "For 2 more nights. Please don't argue. Call it a thank you for letting me share dinner." Erin pressed her lips together, then nodded. Pride and gratitude held hands in her chest and decided finally to be friends. "Thank you," she said again, a little steadier now. He reached for the door. Piper's voice stopped him. "Mr. Noah." He turned. "Yes, ma'am." "Can we save some chicken for tomorrow?" she asked, serious, "so it lasts longer." Noah smiled in a way that made his eyes look younger. "That's a very smart idea," he said. "We'll make chicken soup tomorrow night with carrots." Piper considered this, then nodded like a tiny judge approving a plan. The next morning, the diner bell jingled again. Aaron and Piper came in from the cold with cheeks bright and eyes awake. Jenna waved like they were old friends. Gus held up a greasy hand in greeting and jerked his thumb toward the alley where two good tires waited like promises. Noah, already in the corner booth, stood. He had ordered before they arrived pancakes, eggs, fruit, 2 mugs of cocoa with extra whipped cream for Piper because that felt like a day you should say yes to something sweet. They ate. When Piper got a dab of whipped cream on her nose, Noah laughed and wiped it off with a napkin, careful like he was allowed to be gentle now without breaking. Aaron watched him with a look he didn't know how to read at first, soft, grateful, a little surprised. "Why are you alone?" Piper asked suddenly in the honest way only small children can ask. "Don't you have a wife?" The table went very quiet. Aaron opened her mouth to scold. Noah raised a hand. "It's okay," he said softly. He looked at Piper. "My wife died last year." Piper's face fell. "Mine too," she said, then looked confused and turned to her mom. "Wait, no, that's not right." Aaron's hand found Piper's hand, a squeeze that meant "I'm here." "Piper's dad left when she was little," she said quietly. "Oh," Piper said, losing interest as only a 3-year-old can when the story gets heavy. "Do you like whales?" "I do," Noah said, smiling, "especially the purple toothbrush kind." Piper nodded satisfied. "Me too." They finished breakfast. Outside, Gus changed the tires while Noah showed Piper how to count lug nuts. She counted to 5 with fierce focus, then started again just for fun. Aaron helped Jenna wipe down a table and didn't feel like she was in the way. When the car was ready, they stood together for a moment in the winter light, snow balanced on the branches above like frosting. "I found a small place," Noah said carefully, words chosen like fragile items. "The library needs a part-time helper for the children's room. It's only 10 hours a week to start, but the librarian is kind and she said she likes people who know how to whisper and smile at the same time. I told her I knew someone who could." Aaron's breath caught. The library had always been safe when she was a kid. Books didn't ask questions you couldn't answer. "I can do that," she said, hope like a small flame waking in her chest. "And the bakery 2 streets over is hearing for mornings," Jenna added, appearing as if she'd been summoned by kindness. "The owner owes me a favor. If you want, I can put your name first on the list." Aaron's hand went to her mouth. Piper tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, that means we can buy oranges," she said, as if oranges were a future only rich people had. "Yes," Aaron said, laughing through tears. "It means we can buy oranges." They planned the next steps in small, manageable pieces. Aaron would clean Gus's back room on Saturday. She'd meet the librarian on Monday. Jenna would text the bakery owner today. Noah would stop by in the evenings to bring leftovers if he cooked too much, which he suddenly realized he always did now that he cooked alone. It felt like building a bridge, not all at once, but plank by plank, sturdy enough to hold. On the 3rd morning, just as they were about to head to the diner again, a knock sounded on the motel door. Aaron opened it to find Sheriff Tom holding a brown box. "Morning," he said, hat in hand. "Folks at the church put this together, no need for thank yous or anything, they just said to pass it on." Inside were boots in Piper's size, a thick scarf, 2 pairs of gloves, and a coat that would fit Aaron without swallowing her whole. Aaron reached out, touched the coat, and had to sit down because the kindness felt like standing up too fast. She looked at Noah, who stood a little back, hands in pockets. "I don't know how to repay all this," she said. "Live warm," Noah said, "and when you can, pass it on." That day at the diner, Piper pointed through the window with a sticky finger. "Look," she said, "it's snow, but it looks like sugar." "It does," Noah said. "Want to make a wish?" Piper shut her eyes and scrunched her face. "I wish for oranges," she said, "and for the whales to have friends." "Good wishes," Noah said, and for the first time in one long year he made a wish too. Not for what he had lost that was sacred and unchangeable, but for what could grow beside the loss without taking away from it. Simple things like new names in his phone, 2 sets of footprints beside his on the way to breakfast, the sound of small feet running down a hallway, laughter that didn't feel like it was borrowed. Over the next week, Aaron started at the library. The children loved her quiet voice that could still carry and the way she knelt to look them in the eye. Piper made friends with the fish in the waiting tank and told everyone, "Mr. Noah likes whales." The bakery called and Aaron took the early shift. She brought day-old bread to the diner for Gus to turn into croutons and to the church for soup days. Little by little, the edges of her life stopped feeling sharp. She slept. She saved a little. She circled an apartment listing in the local paper and tucked it in her pocket like a secret. One evening, as the sun went down in pink stripes behind the old mill, Erin stood outside the motel room door while Piper slept inside with her whale toothbrush on the nightstand like a tiny flag. Noah leaned on the balcony rail beside her, breath white in the cooling air. "You know," Erin said, "the first day we walked into that diner, I felt like a shadow. I thought if I stayed quiet enough, I could go unnoticed, and being unnoticed felt safer than being turned away. And then you saw us. And I was scared of that, but you didn't make me small, you made space for us to be human again." Noah swallowed. He didn't trust his voice. He nodded. "I don't know what the future is," Erin continued, words slow and careful. "But I know this part. I'm grateful, not just for the food and the room and the job, for the way you looked at my daughter like she was a joy and not a problem. That matters more than you know." Noah cleared his throat. "She is a joy," he said. "You both are." They stood in the quiet, side by side, the way people do when there's nothing more to be said that wouldn't break the good of the moment. The next morning, another Thursday, Noah sat in the corner booth with a blueberry pancake because Hannah would have insisted. Erin and Piper walked in with snow in their hair and color in their cheeks. Piper ran to the table and climbed into the seat like she'd been doing it all her life. Jenna slid 2 mugs of cocoa across the table before they even asked. Gus stuck his head out of the kitchen and said something about a squeaky belt they'd fix next week. Sheriff Tom tipped his hat from the door. The bell jingled and jingled as people came and went, each one carrying a small piece of a story that was starting to belong to all of them. Erin looked at the plate in front of Noah, at the butter melting on the pancake. She smiled. A smile not made of relief but of something steadier. "You know what I see when I look at that?" she asked. "What?" Noah said. "A beginning," she said. He looked at her, really looked, and saw that she was right. The beginning wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was a child's giggle when whipped cream touched her nose, a job offer written in neat letters on a library form, a pair of boots left in a brown box at a door, a plate of pancakes that tasted like calm. It was 2 people who had been carrying too much for too long, choosing at last to let a town help carry it with them. And as Piper leaned over the table to sneak a blueberry from Noah's plate, giggling when he pretended to be shocked, the bell above the door jingled again, letting in the cold and a new face. The story, you realized, wasn't closing, it was opening wider. If this touched your heart, please like this video, drop your city in the comments so we know where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to this channel to support our growth.